Welcome back, America. You're listening to another edition of Freedom Friday. As a matter of fact, this is a Freedom Friday update. My co-host, Brandon Big B, and of course, I am your host, Carl Gallups. Brandon, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I listen. Several editions ago, we did a program on the feminization of men. I didn't realize what a hot topic that was with so many people. I mean, it's a real truth. As a matter of fact, you have a perfect illustration of how truthful it is. But we ruffled a few feathers, but we also caused a few people to think, and we got some feedback on it. But I asked you today to come on the show because I wanted to do an update on this to illustrate just how hugely important this topic is. So why don't you give us a little update of what we discussed before and tell us kind of what's happened since then and thoughts that you've had on it since then.
Yeah, definitely. And again, thank you. But what we talked about was there just seems to be an overwhelming feminization of men. Now, in my opinion, that is particular in the younger generation. I'm going to say 30 and younger. That's the example I used before. And what really sparked me on this, I've noticed this for a long time. I've listened to a lot of very educated people talk about different chemicals and all that can be causing some of this, and we'll get into that a little deeper. But I witnessed this firsthand at an event I was at recently with a couple of hundred teenagers between the ages of about 14 and 18. And then on top of that was another probably 50 or 60 college-age students, probably ages 18 to 22, 23. And there was I was disturbed at the lack of men in that group. And when I say men, I say, young men and men who carry themselves like men, right, who walk around with their shoulders held high, and who act like men and talk like men and dress like men. And it disturbed me to see the lack of that.
Right.
So that's kind of what we talked about in that Freedom Friday segment a couple of weeks ago. And like you said, we got some feedback on that through the ppsimmons YouTube channel and through the Freedom Friday email there, and a lot of it was negative. You catch a lot of criticism when you address a subject like that, but that's fine. Bring the criticism on, but show me where I'm wrong, because all the evidence I see says that what we talked about is right.
Well, and let me just interject very quickly. I've been in the ministry 30 years, and prior to that, I was in law enforcement for 10 years. So, 40 years of observing humanity and culture and the degradation of our culture and the culture's absolute blatant effort to feminize men. I mean, we know it's happening. We know that's an agenda. And so you and I are just observers of culture. And I mean, what you do for a living and all of your immersing in ministry and radio and media, you observe it too. So what we're speaking, we're not saying every man is a wimp. What we're saying is there's this disturbing trend that's taking place in our culture that's a direct assault on manhood. And manhood is not defined by the size of a man or how much he can bench press or how deep his voice is, but it's defined by the biblical measures and biblical standards of manhood. Being a man, taking responsibility, being accountable before God, being a leader in church, home, family, marriage, those kinds of things. But what you and I think what we're saying is that we are, as observers of culture, we are observing that this breakdown of manhood is occurring, and we're watching it in an entire generation. Did I speak that correctly?
Yes, you did an excellent job. And let me just give a real-life example. Listen, this is a comment that we got at ppsimmons YouTube channel, and it's posted there. You can go and read it. But this was from a female, from a mom, and I believe she said that her daughter was in her late 20s, okay? And her comment was basically this. I'm paraphrasing, but this is what she said. She says, this segment was painful for me to listen to. She said, and she went on to say, but it was painful because it was true.
Right.
And the truth needs to be spoken.
Right.
And the way that she went on to tell that she knows this is true is she says that her daughter has basically given up on dating and finding a mate because her daughter has been unsuccessful in finding any real men. Men being defined as what you just said. Someone who will take responsibility, who would be the head of the household, who would act as the biblical definition of a man. You know, and again, not in size or stature necessarily. There's plenty of small males that I believe are men who stand up for their values, who stand up for their family, who stand up for what they believe in.
I agree.
Unashamedly, and they don't apologize for it. They don't walk around with their shoulders slumped over and talk in a in a little voice like they don't want anybody to hear them, or they're scared somebody might judge what they say. No, be a man. Take a stand for what you believe in.
Right. And I think another characteristic of this feminization of men is the fact that they are always passing, the blame, the buck to somebody else. Look, we see that in our current, in the guy that's in the White House right now. Nothing is ever his fault. It's always a little whiny, snivelly voice about, well, Bush did it. Well, the IRS did it. Well, the NSA did it. Well, I didn't know. Well, I read it in the newspaper. Well, that's the Secretary of State. Well, it's just, come on, stand up, be a man, square your shoulders. I mean, I think of Ronald Reagan. Now, in the presidency, there was a good example of manhood in the presidency, and that's the kind of stuff you and I are seeing. It's like so many young men now adopt that style of living. They pass the buck, pass the blame, talk in a little snivelly voice, walk around with their shoulders slumped, don't take accountability, don't take responsibility, afraid of some hard work if necessary. Some of them just won't support their families because they don't get the kind of job they think they deserve. There's an entitlement mentality, and it's just destroying manhood. And when you destroy manhood, you destroy the family.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me give a real-life example of how this is a cultural assault right now, and then we'll get into the chemical side. But from a cultural standpoint, I'm in my late 30s, almost 40. So let's look back 30 years, when I was a kid, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Now, back then, as a little boy, if me and one of my buddies had a problem, we just went out in the yard and we just pushed each other around and got into it or whatever and settled it, okay? And then 10 minutes later, we were buddies again and riding bikes or, playing in the tree out back or whatever. But now think about today, two little kids, two little boys get into a fight. Number one, somebody's probably going to call the police.
Well, somebody's probably going to go to jail.
Hey, and that there you go. But look, let's take it even a step further. So then after that, then we put one of the little boys in counseling for being aggressive. We put the other one in counseling for being bullied. And we put them both on medication because their psyche has been damaged, and we have to now repair both of their self-esteems for different reasons.
Yeah, excellent.
That's how we handle manhood today in our culture, or that's how we train young boys to become men today.
Yeah, brilliantly stated. Brilliantly stated. That's what we're talking about, folks. That's what's happening to us. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. Well, let's move over into the chemical assault. And I touched on this a couple of weeks ago, that there is in fact a chemical assault on manhood. Now, in my opinion, it's very calculated. I don't think this is any accident when it's stated by the elitists and the globalists that one of their goals is population control. As a matter of fact, the number that they give that they think the world population should be is about 500 million. Well, when we're pushing 8 billion now, that's a lot of people to get rid of. So one way that you can do that without just killing billions of people is you do away with the reproduction process. So the chemical assault on manhood, the day after you and I talked about this on Freedom Friday, there was an article in the Independent.
Yeah, I remember that.
Out of UK. Yeah, and the headline of the article is very simply this. It says, chemicals in soap can cause male infertility, claim scientists.
Right. Who knew
now,
that?
They go on to say in this article, in the second sentence of this article, it says 1 in 3, quote, non-toxic chemicals used in the manufacture of everyday items significantly affected the potency of sperm cells.
Right.
1 in 3.
Right.
1/3 of the chemicals used in everyday items. Now, the everyday items that they defined were soap, toothpaste, certain plastics. I talked about that in our Freedom Friday edition. BPA, bisphenol A, how that acts against, reduces sperm count in men. And then you have other chemicals that are called estrogen mimickers, which are in different products and plastics especially, and in chemicals in some of our foods that we eat that actually mimic female estrogen in a man, which again causes a reduction in sperm count, so therefore lowers the male's chance to be able to reproduce, but also actually introduces female hormones, or the mimickers of female hormones, into a man's body.
Yeah, so
which will, over time, it's going to make him act like a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying when you go to the grocery store to buy chicken, and you're going to buy chicken breast, and you see chicken breast in a package about the size of a turkey, you probably shouldn't buy that. It's probably been pumped with steroids, female steroids, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's just one great example.
Yeah. I mean, always
one great example.
I mean, listen, I've been around farms and chickens all my life. I know that a chicken breast does not look like that, but in the grocery store they do. So, folks, what does that tell you? Of course, 90% of our population has no idea what a chicken looks like on a farm.
Yeah. Yeah. Now listen, here's another example of we move away from the chemical side and we go into the flat-out brainwashing side. Another thing that we talked about was how the radical homosexual agenda is a huge part of this feminization of men. Okay? Now, there's a video making its rounds on YouTube right now, and it's called Kids React to Gay Marriage. All right? Now keep in mind that this video has also been shown in some elementary schools. Now, what they did is they take different scenes of different gay people, men being with men, men kissing men, or men at two men being married in a gay marriage ceremony. They show these clips to children, 13 and under, okay? And they get their reactions to these clips. And most of the kids are saying how, oh, well, some people don't like that, but I think that it's okay. And it just made me feel good inside to know that people can express themselves that way. Our kids have been brainwashed.
I was going to say.
And now we're allowing garbage like this, pornography like this, to go and be shown to our elementary school students so that they are being normalized to think that this behavior is normal and that it's acceptable. There are elementary schools in this country that are elementary schools, understand that are teaching children about how to have and perform homosexual acts.
Yeah. So in other words, and listen, we've only got like a minute and a half. So in other words, there is a purposed agenda. There is a brainwashing process going on. There's an agenda. There's a chemical assault, and most of it is launched and aimed right at the male, the man, the manhood. And by the way, if you can feminize the men of a nation, guess what? You can overrun and destroy that nation militarily and every other way.
Well, that's right, because you don't have anybody to take a stand for what they believe in.
Right.
And listen, another reason that I believe that there's an agenda at work and that this is calculated. Listen, you and I just finished reading a book by the title of Brave New World.
Right.
It was written in 1932. And one of the underlying objectives in that book is just this. It's the sexualization of children.
Yeah.
Because you get a hold of them at such a young age. And you twist their minds, and you take everything that's natural and normal away, and you introduce them to these perverted, acts, and teach them that this is natural and normal. Well, then you control them forever.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, and that opened in the very first chapter. Listen, we've got to conclude this interview. We've got about 30 seconds. Folks, let me just say, if you're listening to this and this disturbs you, please understand this is real. This is happening. We're not making this stuff up. It's in the headlines every day. Please, men, hearing this, please be men of God. Come back to the Lord. Get into His Word. Be the man of God that God designed you to be, so that our culture, our society, your homes, your marriages, our nation can be healthy and restored once again. Brandon Bigby, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
God bless you. Folks, you've been listening to another edition of Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Brandon Bigby, your co-host. This has been a Freedom Friday update. We'll check you next time.